We are a Unitarian Universalist congregation with no geographical boundary, working toward creating a global spiritual community rooted in profound love, which cultivates wonder, imagination, and the courage to act. Adapting to the COVID-19 pandemic has been difficult for many bricks and mortar congregations. Early on in the pandemic, we were in a unique position to assist many congregations with the transition. We hosted special episodes of The VUU, provided advice and counseling to religious professionals, and trained congregations for live streaming worship, all while providing robust online programming for our members. From worship to covenant groups, from classes to pastoral care, and from our monthly magazine to our letter writing ministry, we have found ways to build connection and community even through the screen. We have been a model for ministry on the margins, providing services for isolated Unitarian Universalists, becoming a spiritual lifeline for our members in prison, and investing in innovative ministry. We know better than anyone how deep and meaningful connections can be formed even from a distance. Unitarian Universalists have faced many challenges in these times, and we continue to persevere and to fight for justice and equity for all people, especially during moments of crisis. We are proud to be a leader in this faith movement, and we invite you to get involved in our ministry. We strive to be a place where anyone from anywhere can find spiritual refuge anytime they need it. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Larger Fellowship. We are so excited to bring you an all-new episode of The VUU. The VUU is a weekly Unitarian Universalist talk show discussing important faith-based topics from an anti-racist, anti-oppressive, and multicultural perspective. Every Thursday for the past 7 years, we have welcomed guests from every corner of the world. Our guests are writers, scholars, activists, and religious thought leaders who are shaping Unitarian Universalism and society for the 21st century and beyond. I hope today's show inspires you. Hope it builds your faith. Hope it gives you perspective to see the power of Unitarian Universalism at work in your life. Enjoy the message. Hello, welcome to The VUU. I wish I had glitter. Today is the 400th episode and the 9th year of The VUU, and we are so honored today. I'm Aisha Hauser, I should say first, one of the hosts of The VUU. It is in our 9th year, and we have the originators, the OG founders, creators of The VUU, Reverend Meg Riley and Reverend Joanna Fontaine Crawford. So this is an incredibly exciting show. Again, lamenting I don't have glitter. And I am in the unceded territory of the Coast Salish people, also known as Seattle, Washington. And I can't wait to get started on this show. Reverend Michael, how are you? Where are you?
Greetings, everyone. Happy 400 episode of the VUU, beloved. I'm excited to be here. I'm joining you from the land of the Kitchewan and Wappinger bands of the Lenape Nation, now known as Peekskill, New York, a little north of New York City. I get a fancy banner. Isn't that nice? And it is my birthday and the 400th episode of the VUU, so I'm wearing a tiara. Which I think is appropriate. Chris, how are you?
Hi, everyone. I'm Cristina Rivera, coming to you from my ancestral homeland of the Taino people, Borinquen, also known as Puerto Rico. And I am delighted, tip my hat, to welcome the founders of this fantastic podcast. Also a Gemini birthday there with Michael. I always celebrate my birthday, or not always, but at least for the past 10 years with thousands of my closest friends at General Assembly next week. It's always fun. UU Roundup. What do we have? What are we doing? What we're talking about? We've got General Assembly. I mean,
well, happy birthday, Michael.
Thank you. So
I think
General
the first
Assembly
roundup
is happening. It officially opens next week, but business is happening. Mini assemblies. The prioritized amendments that have been proposed to the Article 2 proposal are online, and there are like 86 of them. And so I encourage you out there in VUU land, if you are a delegate, to read all 86 and decide which of those you think are the most important, because we're going to be asked to vote on such things. They're like little things to big things. There are lots of them. And I will say, last year, the lead ministry team of the Church of the Larger Fellowship, your lead ministry team, the three of us were installed at General Assembly, and we all wore very fancy shoes. And I will say that my shoes did not fit my feet and caused me great pain. And so after General Assembly, my shoes were given to my nephew, who was really happy to receive them. But we're leading worship again at GA this year, and we need some fancy shoes for that. So I'm happy to announce my General Assembly shoes arrived.
Oh my God!
They fit my feet.
That is so fabulous.
So fabulous.
You seeing
wow.
Look down.
Yeah, look down. Oh, we will be grounded in some fantastic shoes. I can't even show you mine, but like you'll be excited.
I don't have new. I guess I feel pressure now. Somebody asked me last year when the shoes that I had on, are they comfortable? I said the patriarchy won't allow that. They're gorgeous. They're not going to be both gorgeous and comfortable.
Right?
Where are we going?
I told people, like, when the Pope goes out onto the balcony and all of that regalia, it's not comfortable. He's not having a good time. Like, the minute he steps back, people are taking this shit off of him. Like, yeah, it's not meant to.
I just said that I had joined the long list of people who had suffered for feminine beauty. So to stick my feet into those shoes last year, and they're no longer in my possession. Those beautiful shoes. I have these instead.
Regifting is wonderful. Is love.
We should ask Meg and Joanna what kind of shoes they're wearing at General Assembly.
We should welcome them onto the show. Yes. So as Aisha mentioned, our guests today are the Reverend Meg Riley, Minister Emerita of the Church of the Larger Fellowship and current co-moderator of the Unitarian Universalist Association, and the Reverend Joanna Fontaine Crawford, who serves one of our congregations in Austin, Texas. And we are so excited, former learning fellow at the Church of the Larger Fellowship. And Meg and Joanna are the people responsible 400 episodes ago for the fact that we are still gathering every Thursday from September to June to talk about important things and not important things and glittery shoes. What are y'all wearing at GA?
Joanna? Comfortable clothes, because I will be at home this year. But coming to GA, I hope. Yeah. I'm an old lesbian. I wear comfortable shoes all the time. So that's what I'll be wearing. I think Robin Williams said, "What's wrong with lesbians? They're just women who wear comfortable shoes." And I was like,
shocking. So Meg, last year you were the co-moderator that was online, correct?
I was.
And so will you be doing that this year, or are you?
I haven't been to an on-site GA since Spokane, so I'm kind of nervous about it. I mean, I was nervous last year online, but it just felt like I have never met with Susan Frederick Ray as she leaves. The whole board since I joined as co-moderator 3 years ago has been virtual. We have met only on Zoom. So, so we're going to have a retreat in August, and hopefully everyone will be able to attend. You know, we want people with all abilities to be able to come. And this year, I know some people are upset that we're still masking because they think we shouldn't be anymore. But we really, we're really committed to protecting the most vulnerable people among us. And I know some people are taking great risks by being there on site. So I will be in Pittsburgh. And I need to just say one thing. I'd love to talk about the VUU and other things because I'm living GA. But Michael, we are not going to talk about 90 amendments. Let me just say that up front. I think, and I miss you all. That's the first thing I need to say. I miss this weekly hanging out with specifically the three of you, because by the end we were the team. But moving from individualism to collective thought is a really challenging thing for our people. And so a lot of those amendments are very, very tailored to moi rather than us. So we're really working hard to get people, when we asked for ideas, and we got, I think, 400, almost 500 of them for amendments, then we had some sessions to get people to work together. But one of the questions we asked was, how many people did you talk to about this idea? Because the Article 2 Commission talked to like 10,000 Unitarian Universalists over 3 years, right? And people said, most people said no one. And one person said, I'm really angry that you asked that question. And so I feel like moving from that sense of it's all about me to what can we all live with? What can we all live into? It's going to be a huge challenge for all of us. And I will say, as someone who went to all the Article 2 meetings, I didn't get everything I wanted, and there were only 7 of us in the room. So you can 100% count on not liking everything. Just count on it now. That if what you're waiting for is a statement that meets you in your little faith heart, you're not going to get it. No one will, because we have a whole lot of us to work into that room. So that's all I want to say about GA.
And that's the same for the principles as we have them now, right? There are different principles that speak to me at different stages of my life. There are different ones that speak to me when I'm examining my calling, or thinking about preaching, or thinking about faith development. Like that's one of the things that I love, about that we don't have just one principle.
Mm-hmm.
That, something may not speak to me today, but that doesn't mean it's not going to speak to me for forever.
Yeah. Well, it's very funny. I love that the VUU is still here, and I can't believe when you say 9 years. I actually sparked. She was the first learning fellow at CLF. She was finishing up in seminary. Joanna, will you tell the origin story of this show? Because I love this story.
The origin story of the VUU. Okay, so I was applying to be on the first presidential search committee. Michael Tino and I were on that together. And one of the questions that it had was about sexuality. And I called up Meg and I said, I really don't know what to say here because I'm bisexual. I've always been bisexual, but like how I can't remember. Now it seems kind of weird because like I'm not, I absolutely am. It's not like I wasn't out or anything. And Meg said, well, I think that you should click straight because you're not representing the queer community or something like that. You can. Yeah. And for those who don't know, I've been married for 33 years and am monogamous to a man.
Right. So Joanna said, I'm bisexual. That's who I am. And what are they asking? Are they asking who I am or who I'm in relationship with primarily? I said, I think they're asking who you're in relationship with primarily in that way. Although maybe they weren't actually. Maybe they weren't. Maybe they were asking what sensibility do you bring into it. So we were having this discussion and we said, this is the most UU conversation on the planet, right?
And we said, wouldn't it be great if we had something and I think we may have even talked about the show, The VUU, VIEW. Wouldn't it be great if we had if we had some kind of a show where UUs could just go on and have these conversations that we often have in private spaces? And that's how it all started.
Tanner, can I come back in?
You're there, Meg. We're all there.
I just wanted to say, watching this fancy setup that you all have figured out now on a rendezvous platform, we started on, I think, Google on the Air, didn't we, Joanna?
Yep, Google Hangouts.
And it was horrible.
Yes, yes.
Unless it was Skype. It could have been Skype, but I think it was Google on the Air. And it screwed up weekly. You could absolutely count on it. There'd be 5 of you, and then people would disappear, and then someone would be in the middle of an interview and they'd just be cut off. Or, I mean, it just was, it was free. It was a free platform, and you got what you paid for, is what I would say.
Right. Yeah. I remember us joking about, at that point, we were doing everything with bubble gum and duct tape.
And Joanna, you always said, it's live TV. And it was.
So I wonder how you all decided like who to invite to the VUU, both as co-hosts and as guests, because that definitely seems to have evolved over the years. But I wonder where it started.
I think it started with thinking about who's got some kind of an audience who counterbalances us. And so we started out, as you may, there goes your adorable hat. As you may recall, it started with Hank Purse, who is hilarious and also managed to really offend some people over time. And Tom Shade. That's who I remember, and us. Was that it, Joanna? Or were there more?
That's who I
thought Patrice Curtis.
Patrice, yeah.
Oh, Patrice, yeah, because she came in the next year and was a learning fellow. So then she came on, yeah. And Aisha, I remember when you came up to me at GA and said, wouldn't it be great to have a religious educator? And I said, it sure would. And you said a few more things. And I said, wait a minute, are you saying you would like to be on The VUU? And you said, well, yeah. And I was like, done, And so then you came on. That made it a whole lot more fun. And people left. And we switched platforms here and there. Joanna, you may have been gone by then. I don't remember.
No. I was, Aisha and I were on at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
And in terms of guests, at first, we didn't limit ourselves to UUs. We were just looking for like interesting people. And Meg, the one I'm going to bring up. Meg had found this couple that were really into the small house movement. They were not UUs. And like they were hardcore into the small house movement. And I just remember one of the guests talking about how like the house was an extension of her body or something like that. So we were really getting some interesting people.
Yeah, they built this like 20 by 20 thing. And weren't they also into like being in relationship 24 hours a day? I mean, it was really intense. And I just remember you saying, I love my husband, but I don't think this would work.
Yeah.
They were like bonded, those two. I don't remember where I got them. So yeah, they seemed more interesting in a short video, I think is what happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, we would just be scanning for either UU or non-UU stories of interest. And I think it evolved over time, depending on who were the learning fellows, and because the learning fellows always played a central role. And doing some of what Tanner's doing now, which is great, but also, being in touch with the guests and just kind of holding the center of the thing. And so depending on who the learning fellows were, they would have ideas about who to invite in at different times. But I think it just started out much more general than it became.
Quickly, though, I think that we realized that one of the real gifts of it was that you could be so up to the minute. Like when something happened, boom, you could, we'd be like, okay, can we get can we bump someone and can we get this person on? Like, I think that when the New Orleans church was infiltrated with some disruptive people, I think that we had the minister who had been preaching that Sunday was Deanna Vandiver. I think that we were able to get her on like immediately to talk about that. And it seems like that has been one of the real gifts of this, is that you can be so immediately topical.
Also, as somebody who had worked at the VUU for years, I loved the freedom of it. I could say what I wanted to say without having levels, which unfortunately is no longer true. It's all about the roles you're in at various times, right? But I think about the times when, like, UUA staff immediately said, now, this would be better if you did these 15 things and, rearranged it. And somebody else said, you really need to get a mission statement and a covenant. And I just was like, this is like a fun hour every week. And I don't have the energy to put all that this is what it is. It's very folky. It's very homespun. And yet I think it's played an essential role. Like, one of the shows I'll always remember is that we debuted the new hot pink logo that the UUA put out. And people had a lot of feelings about it. And I think some people at the UUA were mad that it debuted on The View. I can't remember. There was some drama about it that I forget. But, we became the place where breaking news could break. And so we started to get asked by people if they could come and talk about whatever. And if we thought it was interesting, we'd say yes. And if we didn't, we'd say no.
And the fact that it was something where, people, I think, felt kind of relaxed, and we could get into some real conversations. Now, there definitely were some times where after we went off the air, after we concluded an episode, we'd be like, okay, what did I say? Did I say something that I need to go apologize for? But we were having those real conversations that we don't always see.
I think that the live aspect of it is really interesting and does give us both the freedom, because we definitely we've continued in the freedom of expression for sure, but also, kind of to your point, Joanna, sometimes you do get to the end of an episode and you're like,
on that, aren't we?
Well, that's okay. That's going to be out on the podcasting world. Here we go. But it does give just like the ability to relax a little. You're not, doing 2 and 3 video takes and, deciding which one's the best. It is what it is. What we get is what we get. And that sometimes leads to, some of the most hilarious moments that we've ever seen on The View as well. So
what would be one of your favorite hilarious moments, Christina?
Oh my goodness. I can't even think of one. I can just, like, the thing that I picture in my mind when I think of that is this screen, like this 5-up box, and just Aisha like crying tears of laughter for something or other that one of us has said, and Michael just, like, I love Michael's laugh. It's so infectious, and particularly during the pandemic, it was so needed. Like, it was an hour that week that I just knew was going to be lovely. Yeah. And I didn't need to worry about it. I didn't need to, put my armor on for it. It was just wonderful. And then, so how did you all come up with the name The View?
I mean, I think it was just a play on The View, and I think that even at the time, Meg and I were like, oh, this is really hokey. Like that whole thing, right, that all UUs do of putting double U's in absolutely everything. And also, we did so many experiments with CLF that failed, right? Like I remember us trying to do a live stream class, which boy, was that a fiasco. And so I'm not sure, Meg, I don't think that we had any idea that it would last. Like it was just kind of a, hey, throw spaghetti at the wall, let's try this.
Yeah.
So we didn't give it a
And
whole lot
so
of
Tanner Linden behind the chalice with us today was the one that came up with what the acronym is. And he presented it to us, I think one day live or something. I can't even remember what it was. It was very
Well, it was with the opening. I think Tanner was it when I don't know. Tanner never comes on anymore, but I think it was when Tanner said, I'm going to create an intro video, and that's when I first saw it.
Yes.
But the thing that I think people don't, I think, so sometimes the hardest thing for me every now and then we get a guess that it's a little bit like pulling teeth, and that is not fun. It is a little hard. But the thing that's been interesting, so I've been on, I think, 7 years. I think I joined 20. When did you all, so 9, why can't I just do math? 2014 you started? So I think I started, anyway, is what people get mad at. Every now and then I'll get feedback that, you said blah, blah. First of all, I'm like, I did? You sure? Like, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe I said that thing. And like, is that really what you're mad at? Like, 4 minutes of an hour show that like maybe I don't know how many people see. It's that's been the most fascinating. It's like,
yeah.
Or when somebody will say we said something that's illegal, I'm like, can that really stand up in a court of law? If somebody's like, whoever said something on a YouTube podcast show. I mean, if somebody follows advice that may not actually hold water in your state or country, is that really on us? I mean, I don't. That's been the most fascinating to me, is what people get, not most fascinating, but it's been a surprise to me what people get upset at, and who we also have hate watchers. I think that's the measure of success as well. People who watch it who just want to be annoyed and look, oh, Meg, come on. I love Meg's stories also. Meg and Joanna have great stories.
Yes.
And Meg, always tell your stories.
And Meg and Joanna, if you didn't hear, so in season 7, we did a rebrand. And that's when we got the name, which is the Voices of Unitarian Universalism.
Yeah.
The VUU. I know, it's brilliant.
I love it.
Yeah, it's great.
I was going to lift up, Aisha, the conflict between it's live and then it lives forever. And that's such a weird conflict. And the weirdest one that I've had, so this man who I've never met, who ran for the UUA board a couple of years ago, Jay Kiskell, he, in his book, which I didn't read, but someone sent me this part of it, quoted me on a VUU show. And Ashley Haran had commented, she was talking about what does it mean to be radical. And I said, as a gardener, the word radical is tied to roots. And I think about the weeds that spread through the roots and how hard they are to pull up. And I was thinking about, and I said, it's much easier to pull up weeds if they're just growing as weeds than if they're growing in the middle of something you love. And I was thinking of this particular pernicious weed that I have, the name of which I won't say because it involves the F word, but it's growing in the middle of my peonies, right? And I have spent years trying to get it out of the peonies. And I thought, at some point, I'm just going to have to let go of these peonies because it's right in the middle of the peonies. And I was thinking about how it's easy for me to say I'll boycott Walmart because I don't shop at Walmart, and how much harder it is to say I won't sing We'll Build a Land because I love that hymn and it's hurtful to people I love, so I'm not going to sing it anymore. So I was thinking about the difference between, when things grow, what I was thinking about racism specifically, when it comes up into something you love versus when it's just, there it is, it's, the Proud Boys or something, right? Well, Jay Kiskell took this exchange and said that what I meant by it was that I wanted to weed out all the liberals in Unitarian Universalism and only allow radicals to be in Unitarian Universalism. I said, what? Like, And I thought, metaphor can be dangerous because I have one thing in my mind and I'm using a metaphor. And if somebody's going to see me with a particular lens on, which in my opinion has nothing to do with who I am, but that's what they're looking for, as you said, Aisha, they're coming to be angry. That's what they're going to see. And I was stunned by that. And I just thought, I just hope people who read that think that doesn't seem very likely. But it was just such a moment where I thought I said something about my garden on The View and it shows up in a book, talking about the
Very few people are reading that book. It's like, but that happens to me too. Somebody's like, we did a show on I think it was like humor in the pulpit, and we had Amy
Petrie Shaw.
Yes, Amy Petrie Shaw. So the show was, I thought, hilarious. We're laughing, and I like at the end. It was also the same week that something happened wacky with the stock market, and my comment was like literally at the very end, something like, the feedback I got was Aisha Hauser said something really controversial on that show. I'm like, how's that possible? Like, it was a show about comedy. And then I realized, again, the people who hate watch the show, at the end I said something like, the one thing white people love more than their whiteness is their money. It was a throwaway comment, obviously, like within the context of the show, but apparently like about an hour show about comedy or humor and spirituality and humor and spirituality. That's what people jumped on. And I'm like, oh, I guess I did say that. And wow, like you are really taking notes about how I want to be mad at. And also, Meg, one of the things that also has evolved in this show is we liberally say the word fuck. I mean, not liberally, but more than we used to. So it is commented on, in fact, if we go through a show and I don't say the word fuck.
Yeah.
And I think something should be said, about y'all that this is really brave what you're doing. Like, I think we often don't think about it that way because otherwise we'd never go live on anything. But it really is. And I remember when we started doing this, I hadn't met with the MFC yet. And so there was always sort of this feeling, and we would talk about it openly behind the scenes of, okay, maybe Joanna shouldn't be the one to talk about this until after she meets with the MFC.
And that still goes on. I mean, there are conversations that topics that we're going to bring that we're like, you know what? Maybe Michael might want to lead the conversation on this one, because if Aisha or I lead it, somebody's going to attribute some type of agenda to it that isn't even there, but just for the fact of us having an opinion.
Well, I remember my first time on The View, and I was a guest. I don't even remember why I was a guest. Maybe it was with the Presidential Search Committee, but I don't think so. I don't remember why you thought I would be interesting enough.
Because you are.
For The View. But all I remember about that episode is getting into an argument with Hank about gender-neutral restrooms at General Assembly.
Oh, you were
and that inspired you to invite me to be a guest host when you went on sabbatical, which the rest of that is history too. But sometimes it's those things that we say, the things that come up around the sides, and like the truth telling that happens when we've let our guard down because we're having fun with each other. That is really actually important.
Well, that one on gender neutral bathrooms was horrible. It was, Hank wouldn't let it go. I mean, it was, if anybody's watching who saw it, I still apologize for the comment it brought on it. I ended up doing a special episode with trans people talking about bathrooms. Hank was funny, but there were just times you'd just be like, Hank, just shut up. And he just couldn't that time. He could say some things that made me laugh so hard I cried, but that day I was kind of crying. So, but Joanne, I was going to say, speaking of courage, you're out there on TikTok taking a lot of crap from a lot of people these days. And I just wonder, like, so you have a UU and a non-UU. You have like a really wide audience, including movie stars sometimes.
Yeah, my intended audience is actually not UUs. That being said, I block people all the time just because that's part of kind of the culture of TikTok. And I think that there's a whole lot of Russian bots. And anyway, but I've never blocked a UU, but sometimes when a UU will come into my comments, I'm kind of like, okay, you're going to like want to get into some insider baseball, and that's not really what I'm doing. But it has been great. It's been a wonderful way for me to see how non-UUs kind of hear us. You know, like there are certain words and phrases that I've used for years and never, really thought about, like non-creedal. I have often used that as a way to describe our religion. It really doesn't mean anything to anyone but us. So I've had to find other language around that.
Well, and
So what is some other language?
Oh,
So what I usually will lead with, the other thing with TikTok, unlike like Facebook and stuff like that, is you can't easily repost things. So you'll wind up like answering the same things over and over again. So when we talk about elevator speech, I have done so many versions of that. And what I usually hone in on is unambiguously, unapologetically progressive. And the fact that, I'll say something like, and half of my congregation are atheists. And those are the kinds of things that like people know what that, and it captures their attention.
as long as I've like your online ministry, Joanna, which is long before you were a fellowship minister or even a learning fellow at CLF, you've also been unapologetically universalist. And I think that some of the ways in which you describe universalism on TikTok have gone viral. At least like the way we can talk about viral. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it's very interesting because you have TikTok is more of a conversation, and it's not, whereas Facebook is for the most part people TikTok is people you don't know, and you develop friendships there. And so there are so many other non-UU clergy who are little U universalists. And so we'll have conversations back and forth about these things. And it's, it's what we have always suspected or known, which is most people are universalist. People always respond to that. It's a very common sense sort of thing.
Well, also, Joanna, it makes me think about the book Testimony that I did was inspired by you, because I remember you saying on The View one week, what's this with elevator speeches? Other people don't make elevator speeches. They testify. They give testimony about their faith. And so that's what that book was. It was people testifying. And your TikTok really is testifying much more than elevator speeches, although often you're doing those kind of in response to some stuff that comes back at you that needs clarification. At least I don't see all of it, but I see some of it at least.
Yeah. People will ask questions, which I think is that's the most helpful thing, right? Is and I remember you talking about that, Meg, before, about how often people will be asking questions, or they'll want to know about Unitarian Universalism, and we will assume that we know what they're asking, and a lot of times we're really off. And so if you can have that actual dialogue where people say, no, here's what I want to know, then we can respond to that.
Do you post every day, Joanna? I'm just asking now about your TikTok.
Yeah. Culture of TikTok is different than other platforms, and everything is about what the algorithm. And so the more you can post, the more you're getting into that algorithm. And so the good thing is you can create drafts. And so I often will do a whole bunch of those and then just over a couple of weeks be dropping them.
Well, I love the humor that you push back with people who tell you all the horrible things they say when you have Tom mix you up a drink. Those are kind of my favorite.
I had one. So TikTok also, with the algorithm, you have kind of like different corners of TikTok, right? According to your interest and everything. And so you'll sometimes hear people talk about, oh, my video went to the wrong side of TikTok. And so I had a video where apparently because I used the term love the sinner, hate the sin. Now the context was me saying that and saying it's total bullshit. But it wound up on the fundamentalist side. And I mean, so much so that I was getting hundreds of comments an hour. I finally just handed my phone to my spouse so that I could eat dinner. And I was like, here, just as these come up, go blocking them. So I wound up getting a lot of hate comments, and one called me a filthy heretic. And so I did a video about, wow, that would be a great name for a cocktail. And it was a whole thing with my spouse and me, because he's kind of an amateur mixologist, and him making a drink. So now that's our thing. Whenever I get a really clever insult, my first thought is, ooh, can I make a cocktail out of this?
King one.
Yes, what the heck?
That was hilarious.
Everyone started leaving these comments saying that my spouse looked like Stephen King. Nothing against Stephen King. We know we're like 1 degree separated from him. But yeah, so we had to finally, there were so many people doing that we had to respond to it in a funny way.
So what goes in a filthy heretic?
Yeah, I think that, so in the video, I'm like, the blood of my enemies, and my spouse says, how about tart cherry juice? So it's like, I think it's like vodka and tart cherry juice and some Chambord and lime.
Nice.
Whatever his magic is. Fun. But it's fun. It is fun. And like I've had some bartenders that have contacted me, and they're like, oh, we're going to start serving this in the bar. Like, okay, there we go.
Listen, ministry happens in so many forms. And what I also have loved about this show, and again, thank you, Meg and Joanna, because it is not an exaggeration or hyperbolic to say the lead ministry team would not exist without the VUU, because it is how we us together. How nuanced we can get. We spend an hour. I mean, we get to go back and forth and maybe revisit a topic in later weeks or even over years. And so it is a place. And here's what's interesting. We at one point were delayed in getting the podcasts up for many reasons. And people were texting us like, hey, where are the podcasts? We're waiting for the podcast to get caught up. And it was really a testament to how many people really are engaging. And even if it's, we do, I think, reach non-UUs, but even just our people, getting to be able to have a conversation that is really worldwide, and folks can comment and weigh in, and even food for thought. There are people we'll never know who are watching and listen, and not just hate watching, like love watching. And I think, yeah, it's been truly this show, and Meg Riley, I need to thank you, because you could have said, yeah, whatever, you don't need to be on this show, and you're expansive and loving and open spirit is what allowed all of this. So I thank you so much, because you've changed the course of my career, and I actually write about it in this week's newsletter. So those of you who sign up for the CLF newsletter, I name you both and talk about just how impactful and important the VUU has been, I think, for Unitarian Universalism, and certainly for me personally.
Oh, thank you. That's so sweet. I was so excited that you wanted to do it. I think that as we moved more into looking at the multicultural dimensions and the anti-oppression dimensions, it really became a great place for me to learn, because we'd have the guests on who were creating the beloved community that, and we'd be talking to people. And some of that time, besides CLF, I was serving a very white suburban congregation, and it was just so helpful to have that counterbalance. And it made me think about all the people looking for that, who are in congregations where they feel lonely, or that nobody else is thinking about the things that they're thinking about, and they had some place to go. And I think it's interesting how, Michael, you came on as a guest and then ended up as a host, and all of that kind of Kiana and Janine and, DC, and just all of the coming and going that happens with viewers and super viewers and guests and the fluidity of it, I think, has just been a real wonderful thing to me. So it's very fun to, see it. It's kind of like a friend of mine who's a songwriter said, you write a song and then your kid goes to kindergarten and makes friends you don't even know. Other people start singing your songs, and it's very cool.
Well, this is your garden, Meg. This is your garden. You planted the seed.
Yeah. Joanna, I mean, you have so much material from being in Texas. And
I'm sorry.
From being in Texas right now, and I think, so many states have so much material right now, but I think that that's part of what community needs to build around. I just see how the internet and social media saves people who are in these horrible, horrible places politically under such horrific assaults to have, safe zones where they feel like they can trust somebody.
Yeah, and what I was going to say was what y'all have done with the VUU now is like there is insider baseball is actually important too, and the fact that now people, and I tell congregants this all the time. I'm like, if you want to know what is going on inside Unitarian Universalism, because it's easy for people to get, and we all know this, right? It's really easy for people to get like, oh, it's a clique and I have no idea what's happening. I'm like, watch the VUU every week. You will be one of the insiders if you do that.
And we do have super fans. We love the people who engage with the VUU every week, and I'm sure you're out there. We love you, Janine and Kiana Dene, who are now hosts of the VUU, were super fans, and they would engage every week with comments, and we were like, and we knew them, so we we invited them to more participation. And it's nice. It shocked me the first time I went to GA, having been a host of the VUU. And I don't know if any of you have funny stories about this, but people are like, "Oh my God, you're on the VUU!" Ah! And I'm like, I sit in my office and chat with nice people for an hour a week on Google Hangout, which then became.
You've done so many things, and you're already so visible in the movement, right? Think of being a learning fellow. You're at some obscure seminary. You're just minding your P's and Q's, going through, and all of a sudden at GA, total strangers. Joanna, you must have that perspective. It
freaked my spouse out. My spouse went with me to GA for the first time, and all of these people are coming up and like they know me. And so it gave him the impression that like everyone in the UUA knew me. And I was like, they really don't, honey. But it can be intimidating and very grateful for
the familiarity. Go ahead. Sorry, Joanna, go ahead.
No, just saying. And it was grateful for it.
Oh, yeah. Yes. And what also is fascinating, and this is UU, I mean, in terms of being well known, people assume a familiarity they really don't have, like that, which has been also fascinating. And I've had to navigate people who, I don't know that they think they're my best friend, but I am very outgoing and friendly, and I love being that. And I have been on the show, I think, for 7 or 8 years. I'm trying to remember that. Anyway, and I'm not best friends with everybody who goes to GA. I mean, I love GA and it's fun. And there are those folks that I love seeing. I mean, Christina's in Puerto Rico and she drops off, unfortunately, because of, I think, internet issues. And so I'm actually changing my internet here to get better internet. Huh?
Her power went out.
Oh, shoot. I didn't get the so that's what happened.
And that's Slack. on my other screen over here. So
communicating across a lot of areas.
You didn't check in on the weather, but I needed to say that the air quality here was beyond I've never seen. I mean, I know, Michael, you're in New York and I saw the pictures from there, but we had this combination of Canadian fires and the ozone, such that my 26-year-old with asthma, just from getting from the car to the house, came in, fell down, and did an inhaler. I mean, it is so it's better today, but it was terrifying yesterday.
I
Absolutely terrifying.
can only imagine, and I hope they're okay. I don't have asthma, and there were days that I could barely breathe.
Yeah.
So I could only imagine if someone has a condition like that.
It felt very futuristic in the most horrible way, I have to say. Because we've had bad air quality here from fires before, but the combination of the ozone, which is oxygen you can't breathe, right? And so, like, I couldn't breathe. I had to cancel. You know, I live in the garden this time of year. It saves my soul. And 3 days without gardening, I'm heartbroken, but I'm not going to be out there. I just whisper to the plants from the window, be safe, be safe. But yeah, it's and I missed that about the VUU because, you know, we would have people from all over just talking about whatever was going on locally where they were, and always a span of places. I mean, look at you two, you're across the country from each other, and Chris is in Puerto Rico, like kind of covering the globe in terms of whether it's the weather or politically what's going on, or, you know, just I loved that part of it, that it had some just viewpoints always.
Yeah, we're in such different worlds now, and I really think that the VUU is going to be even more important, because I will tell you, as a minister in a red state, I feel like I am doing a completely different kind of ministry than my colleagues in blue states. Peggy Clark in New York, she and I are talking about like setting up, so in the same way that we used to do this with Transylvania, setting up some sort of partnerships between red state and blue state churches. So that we can stay connected.
On together in the fall.
I'm sorry, say?
But we should have you and Peggy on together in the fall if those things.
Yeah, it may have developed by that point where we can talk about it. But so I think having the VUU where you can hear, I mean, because Unitarian Universalism in Texas right now is really different than Unitarian Universalism in New York. I'm losing several of my families because they have trans kids and they have to move somewhere else.
In Minnesota, we have a trifecta of Democratic Farmer Labor, have the most radically progressive stuff that just came through that we've had in decades, you know, and we're a refuge state for trans kids. And, you know, it's a different world. And that isn't because 48% of the people here wouldn't like it differently. You know, it's because of how the elections went. But yeah, I think about that. And I think about, you know, all of the people who are ministering under such stress at this point, and how to be of support, both lay leaders and professional leaders. Just yeah, the families. It's just we're in times, and yeah, we really need each other. And I that's why some of the really petty infighting just gets on my nerves a lot. You know, the Proud Boys have been targeting some of our churches, and they're targeting all the pride stuff, and we don't know if they'll come to GA, but they might, you know, and that's the world we live in now, where the Proud Boys, we all know who these groups are because they're in the paper, because they have political clout. I mean, so yeah, it's a time. And I grew up in West Virginia as a Unitarian in the 60s, and it was a time. But the church always meant something. And I feel like our churches in the red states are so critically important. They're saving people's lives, no question in the world. And so how do we support the rest of us offer support? It's a really good topic of conversation.
Yeah, it's definitely been central to our conversations of late. You know, you talking about the VUU being timely, and in the minute timely, and then there's a in the moment timely, and you know, we were able to respond to the pandemic with ways to keep people together and keep people safe and keep people connected, and we do the same thing with our folks who are under attack wherever and for whatever reason, and it's definitely been a theme.
It's really important, and you're the right people to do it.
And as Audre Lorde said, your silence will not protect you. And one of the things the VUU does very loudly is not be silent. And so, like you said, Joanna, more than ever, I think we both said it, the VUU is going to be even more and more important as a place until the end, unless the internet goes away, we're going to be able to talk to each other and bear witness and connect and organize and see what happens. So I am, again, deep appreciation to the two of you. We have 5 minutes left. What would you both want the world to know on the 400th episode as we conclude episode 400? Thanks to the two of you.
We're concluding season 9 with this 400 episode too. So
I would just say you're the absolute right people to be doing this. I'm just so delighted to have been part of the beginning and to now be standing back cheering for the people who are doing it now, and that you are the right people to bring the right people, to meet the right people and do the right work. And so thank you for that, for the movement. We need you. We appreciate you. We see you. Thank you. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, all of that. And I would say y'all are proof that you don't have to have a perfectly formed idea, just jump into it, just start doing it, because our faith is one of evolution. And so shows can evolve, principles and values can evolve, right? Just jump in.
Yeah. And Michael, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
And I will say that when I first saw you, I thought that was your hair, the tiara. And I was like, what has he done?
My hair is almost not there anymore, Meg. So,
And I hope
gosh,
wherever you are, that your congregations are sending their full slate of delegates to General Assembly. You can go free for business online. It's not too late to sign up.
CLF is sending our full slate of delegates. That's for sure.
Good.
Great. I've already been doing some voting.
Yeah. And Michael, I saw that CLF actually gathered delegates, and I was like, yay, what a good thing to do.
We had a delegate orientation, and for those people out there who care about these things, we are the only congregation in our association whose number of delegates is capped by the UUA bylaws. So we're sending a full slate. The UUA bylaws say how many delegates we get. And,
how many?
22.
Oh.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for joining us here. I guess I'm wrapping up. This has been season 9, episode 400. We might say hi for General Assembly, but we do not have a show plan from there. We will plan to be back with live episodes of The VUU in September. In the meantime, enjoy the podcast episodes. Go back and look at those moments in VUU history that caused so much controversy and get mad at us all over again, because we are busy weeding white supremacy culture out of the beautiful peony bed of Unitarian Universalism. And you can say that I said that, even if Meg Riley said it first. Well, everyone.
Thank you for joining us. Special thanks to those of you who give generously to this ministry. It is because of you that this ministry is possible. You can click the link in the description to give now, or visit clfuu.org/give for more information. We hope you will join us next week for another episode of The VUU.